Good evening. I want to talk about power for a little bit, um, specifically political power, and why I think that we need to guard against that, and why I think it's at the root of many of our problems. So, I think we have, we're at a great period in time where we can look at the Biden presidency and we can look at the start of the Trump presidency and kind of compare. Now, this post was prompted by an interview I saw with Dr. Simone Gold. She's both a medical doctor and a Juris Doctor, an attorney. And she was in prison during COVID for speaking out. They called her a conspiracy theorist and they threw her in prison. And coming out of that, she started American Frontline Doctors, co-founded that, and she's also taking on the First Amendment, and she has a book coming out in May. Simone, Simone Gold. You can find that book on Amazon. In any event, during this interview, she said something that really struck me. She said, words to this effect: we have built the infrastructure of tyranny. And I think she's absolutely right. So, anybody who is awake or who has their eyes opened knows that the police state was weaponized against those who didn't toe the party line, like Simone Gold, during COVID. This went on for at least 3 years. If you were vaccine hesitant, if you questioned the origins of the virus, if you questioned the efficacy or the safety of the mRNA vaccines, you were canceled, depersoned, removed from the conversation. Like I said, you have to be blind not to have seen that under Biden. Now, under Trump, what are we seeing? We're seeing that if you question the actions of the state of Israel, you are, again, you're labeled as anti-Semitic, and you are shouted down. And perhaps a prime example of this right now is Columbia University. The Trump administration has written letters, plural, to Columbia University, listing all the things they have to do to get federal funding back, which is basically toe the line on support for Israel. Stop anti-Semitic speech, which, I'm sorry, but anti-Semitic speech that falls under the heading of free speech, okay? Free speech, it does not respect dis, malinformation. It doesn't respect hate, okay? Free speech is free speech. I'm a free speech absolutist. You should be able to say whatever you want. So we had, under the Biden administration, attacks on free speech because it was labeled as dis, malinformation, take your pick. Under the Trump administration now we have anything that's anti-Israel is anti-Semitic, which is hate speech, which is to be stifled, or you won't get your federal funding. The point I'm trying to make here is, if you're on the left, and you cheered at all those rednecks like myself being shouted down and shoved off of YouTube and Facebook, and I was called every name in the book, and a few that probably aren't in the book, by people I didn't even know. Now, what goes around, what went around, has come around. Okay, and I don't really want to hear any complaints. That's how power works. Okay, what goes around comes around. So we built this thing that was able, and the censorship industrial complex, which is a thing, we built this stuff for COVID, and now it's being turned on the other side, if you will. Okay, so if you thought that, well, yeah, everything's good with the world because they're turning all these weapons on those freaks, you know, the right-wing extremists. Okay, now what you built is aimed at you. Okay, get over it. So, in other words, we already have that. We have the infrastructure. Now it's just a question of what do we do with that? And that relies on who's sitting in the Oval Office, unfortunately, because we have super empowered the executive branch. The states have done it, the Congress has done it, and we, the people, have been involved in doing it too. Okay? So we have a real problem on our hands with the power that we have invested in the office of the presidency, and by extension, the entirety of the executive branch. All of those 450 agencies. Trump's now pulling the levers. Maybe you're feeling a bit uncomfortable. We should not have invested the presidency with that much power. Okay. I'm looking at a poem from Martin Niemöller. He was a pastor in Germany leading up to World War II. And after the war, he wrote this poem. He said, "First they came for the socialist, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionist, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me." When you cozy up to power, like the church did in Germany under Hitler, it's not going to end well. It's just not. So the FBI is another, or perhaps the same example I've been speaking to, but I'll speak to it specifically now. Back in the 60s and 70s, this was under J. Edgar Hoover, a truly evil human being. The FBI was weaponized against largely leftist causes, okay? The Black Panther Party, the American Indian Movement, war demonstrators when Vietnam came along. And the FBI ran counterintelligence operations in the U.S., okay, on U.S. citizens. They framed U.S. citizens. They created evidence from whole cloth. They lied, cheated, stole. They imprisoned and killed Americans. This is the evidence abounds. Okay. Now that same FBI, that's the infrastructure of tyranny, was there. already, and before the 60s, but FBI was created in 1908. But certainly, as of the 60s, they were fully empowered. Okay, and we've seen more of that. You know of some of the cases: Waco, the Bundy Ranch, etc., etc. Largely leftist causes, of course. Bundy was not on the left, and certainly during COVID, again, the FBI was weaponized against the right. J6, you could go on and on. Okay. And now, people on the right are feeling pretty good. Oh, Kash is in there. Kash Patel, he's going to clean it up, right? And we're going to be fine. Well, meanwhile, of course, it's being weaponized against the left. But beyond that, he's not dismantling the infrastructure of tyranny, which means the next guy to sit down that's not from the right is going to do what they always do. They're going to weaponize the FBI against the right because the infrastructure will still be there. And that's the problem with this Leviathan that we have created. It's just a question of who's next on the list as Niemöller found out. Socialists, trade unionists, Jews, oops, it's my turn. That's how it works. What goes around comes around. So how did we end up in this place? I mean, a lot of it is down to Congress. Congress has totally abandoned their role in the government. We haven't declared war since World War II. This was our voice. Through our representatives in Congress, the people effectively declared war. After all, the Constitution starts with we the people. We haven't declared war for 80 years. 80 years. Meanwhile, we've been at war the whole time. Basically, the Congress just decided that we haven't got time to declare war. We further super-empowered the state after 9/11. W. Bush, a truly horrible president. The so-called Patriot Act is anything but. We basically opened ourselves up to total social control by the government. We allow them, we empowered them to spy on us at will. And you might say, well, I got nothing to hide. Yeah, that's probably what Niemöller was saying to himself, too. This state that we've created is dangerous. I don't care which side of the aisle you're on. It's dangerous. And we need to somehow scale it back. Okay, so the declaration of war, that's one example. Another one I'll give you is, and this is our short-sighted politicians. They're only worried about getting elected at the next election cycle. Whatever happens beyond that, they could care less. They'll somehow say, it wasn't me. 2013, the Democrats decide they're going to lower the bar to put judges on the federal bench throughout the nation, except for the Supreme Court. They do it, which basically they got it to the point where all that was required was a simple majority, which they had. And of course, the left was cheering mightily because now the Obama administration got to fill all federal judge vacancies throughout the country with judges that supported the leftist causes. Okay? So everything's fine, right? We're just tearing down the Constitution as we go. And that's all fine. We got what we wanted. Problem is, fast forward, 4 years later, Trump's in office. What happens? Republicans own the Senate. They took what the Democrats did and they extended it to the Supreme Court. Trump puts 3 judges on the Supreme Court who are sympathetic to conservative causes. I don't want to hear any complaints. The left started it. Trump just finished the job. What goes around comes around. So power, to the extent that we've concentrated it in the federal government, is populated by, largely, especially at the top, bad people. So we've all heard the quote from Lord Acton, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. There's a sentence after that that you almost never see in a quote. That sentence is, and almost all powerful men are bad men. I mean, Micah said this 2,700 years before that. Chapter 2, verse 1 in the Bible. You give people power like that, they will use it for evil. They will. And that's what we have done. We got here, largely started in the 20th century at the outset, under perhaps the worst president in the history of the United States, Woodrow Wilson. And two constitutional amendments in particular were bad for maintaining control of the federal government. Keep in mind, the states put the federal government in place to only do what the states couldn't do for themselves. Okay, so for example, defend the several states against foreign enemies. Manage interstate commerce. Okay? Things like that. Okay? They didn't set it up as a do-all, be-all for everyone. They set it up only to do what the states couldn't do for themselves. So inside the federal government, of course, you have the three branches. Article 1 of the Constitution addresses the legislative. Article 2 addresses the judiciary. Article 3 addresses the executive. The idea was that you would need broad and deep consensus to get laws passed at the federal level. Of course, our representatives have done everything they can do to lower that to where they can get their pet projects through. And hence, that broad, deep consensus is no longer established in most cases. We've obviated the need for that by dicking with what the Constitution says we ought to be doing. Okay, but the federal government, those three branches, that's not enough to constrain, to limit the evil that the feds can do. So the next layer is the states. Okay, so when the Constitution was written, the states had two big, huge powers to help them to restrain the feds. One was the states there was no direct income tax. The states were the paymasters of the federal government. That's how it worked originally. The second thing was senators, the federal senators. They were selected by the state legislatures. Okay? So in effect, the senators represented the state, not the people, the state of Michigan, the state of South Dakota, the state of California, whatever that was. Originally, that's how it worked. Those are two huge powers. There's only 50 senators, and each state has two of them. And a small collection of states could affect change at the federal level. Okay, likewise, withholding payment to the federal government could get their attention. They were the paymasters, in effect. And we got stupid in the early 20th century, about the same time we prohibited alcohol, the height of stupidity. But in any event, what we did was we passed the 16th and 17th Amendments. One of those amendments basically gave the feds the power to tax the people directly without the involvement of the state. Why the states ever agreed to such a thing is beyond me. The second one took senators from being selected by the state legislator to the popular vote. Again, gutting the power of the states to constrain the federal government. So, make me king for a day, 16th Amendment, 17th Amendment would be repealed first thing. We need the states. And frankly, I'm conservative. If California steps up to challenge the power of the feds on constitutional grounds, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Same goes for any liberal state. If they're willing to step up to the feds and challenge their constitutional authority to do anything, I'm there. Likewise, of course, with conservative states. We're seeing some of this out of Florida. We're seeing some of this out of Texas. Not a lot of it. Not enough of it. In my view, either side of the aisle, we need better, good, really solid governors at the state level who will attempt to reel back in some of the power that the states had according to the Constitution. I don't see repeals of those two amendments. It takes 3/4 of the states, if my memory serves me, to ratify such things. But what we can do is, first of all, be talking, communicating with our representatives in the Congress, senators and congressmen alike, or House members alike. The other thing is, stop asking the feds to do things for you. Okay, stop it. You can do it yourself, chances are. Because after 200 years plus, okay, the feds are doing virtually everything that you can think of. So I don't think there's anything new to ask of the feds. And I'd ask you not to ask it of the feds, because every time you do that, you're just further empowering the federal government. So challenge them through your representatives in the Senate and the House. Challenge your state governments to push back on the federal government as you see fit. In other words, get informed and get active in the business of running this country. This business of having this all-powerful, what's that old saying? The government that's powerful enough to give you everything that you want is powerful enough to take everything that you have, including your property, your liberty, and your life. And our government has, in fact, done all those things to citizens. Okay, I'm going to write a post on this, part of my Resist Evil series. It's going to be third in the line. I'm working on number 2 right now. I would love to hear from you regarding what I had to say, what you think of that. If you're thinking the same way I am, if you're thinking somehow differently, I'm fine with that too. I'd just like to know, so that when I write that post, I've got some context within which to write it. So I'd appreciate it. And oh, by the way, if you're on Substack, please don't reply to me by email, because you'll get the post by email if you're a subscriber. Click on the comment button or the message button in the post. That way I've got it all in one place on Substack. If you see this video on YouTube, likewise, comment on YouTube. Don't send me an email. That way I know where to go to find out what people are saying about this video. Having said that, I thank you for watching. All the best. God bless you and yours.